Thank you for joining us this morning. I'm excited to introduce our next speaker. Her name is Jennifer Kruidbos, and she is the CEO of Blawesome. One fun fact about our speaker is that she was once in an all-women's rock band, and their hit song was November. So let's give a round of applause for Jennifer Kruidbos.
Thank you, Jennifer. Okay, so I'll start with this. As I was preparing this talk, even though it's really about wellness, and wellness has been at the core of what I've dedicated my career to, there was such a strong inclination to want to put on this really performative armor and try to sound like the most technical, smart founder in the room. Oops. And I know that that's a super normal thing because our brains evolved in a way that for millions of years, if we ever did anything that would get us thrown out by the clan or the tribes that we were in, we would actually die alone in the cold. So it's such a strong inclination for human brains. But here's the thing with that performative armor. It cuts us off from the thing that's at the core of wellness, which is connection. Without connection or a sense of feeling belonging and love in a community, no matter how well we're eating or sleeping or exercising, we cannot truly improve our wellness. We cannot truly heal alone in isolation. And as shame researcher Brené Brown says, the core of connection is vulnerability. So I told my co-founders, okay, if we truly believe that community is the core of wellness and vulnerability is the core of community, then it feels way more important to share stories of what's true and vulnerable than try to sound like the smartest founder in the room. And they were like, okay, Jen, but this is a tech conference, so please just don't embarrass us. Okay, so we'll share some stories about what wellness is and what the technology that's emerging today can help us deepen our wellness in the future. But let's dig down into what is wellness. Most of us know about eating well, sleeping well, moving well. And in the last couple of years, mental, emotional, spiritual wellness have also become more mainstream and part of the conversation. A couple years ago, I was working with teens with eating disorders at the Montreal Children's Hospital, and I'd invite them to submit questions into this anonymous question box. They would write things like, how do I love myself? How do I accept my body? How do I calm my mind when it's racing at night and I can't relax? And I'd give them some tools, because that's what I'm trained in, journaling, breathing, stretching. But the power of that exercise was that up until that moment, they had felt like the only person in the world with that question, with that struggle. And when they heard questions that were happening in their brains being asked by other people, they were no longer like this wrong or bad person that's going to be thrown out of the tribe or the clan. They were just someone having a shared experience of humanity, albeit a really difficult one. So sharing what's true and connecting normalizes our struggles for others, and so does sharing our wins. Many of us know the 4-minute mile story. Up until someone had run a mile in 4 minutes, people thought it was impossible, and then somebody did, and then many other people could do it as well. So here's the conundrum that I think about and helped me to, as part of the reason why I started my company Blawesome, is if connection and community are the core of wellness, and we're more connected than any other time in history, why is our wellness decreasing? My generation will be the first that lives less long compared to my parents. Anxiety, depression, are on the rise, along with body dysmorphia, addiction, obesity. So we need to change our understanding of wellness. We need to deepen it. And today, as the wealth gap increases, and systemic oppression is a very real thing, although we don't like to talk about it, financial well-being has to be part of the conversation of mental health and wellness. And I'm like a white woman in wellness. Like, I believe money is energy, but the last time I checked, you can't pay your rent in hugs. And if you can, that's a whole other talk and a whole other thing. But it's this connection of wellness and, of community and financial wellness that got me really interested in Web3. And a lot of people say, Jen, Web3 is so early. But if I'm here talking to you about Web3, we aren't that early, because I'm the opposite of a technologist. So I'll share it in the way that made sense to me, in case it's new to anybody here. Web 1 was in the 90s. It was called the read internet, defined by blogs and web pages. Web 2 was like year 2000 to 2020, defined as the read-write internet, defined by social media, uploading content, interacting, and so on. And today we're in Web 3. It's defined as read, write, and own, and we use tools like decentralized communities and NFTs. So let's talk about NFTs. They're a big buzzword. Some people love them. Some people love to hate them. Some people like to say they're a fad that's already over. NFTs are over. NFTs are the building blocks of the future internet. To understand how they can build the future, let's look at the past. It's 1993. There's this thing called the internet that's 2 years old, and a lot of people saying that it's a scam or a fad. Authors and visionaries are talking about the pros and cons. One of those visionaries is John Perry Barlow, and he asks a question that I'll paraphrase. He says, if all of this information can be shared and multiplied instantaneously across the globe, how do people get paid for the work they do with their minds? How do people get paid for their creative ideas? A lot has changed in the last 30 years. There's been millions of photos and videos and cat memes uploaded to the internet. But the question that John Perry Barlow remains unanswered. Even though the internet has become increasingly our default context, as many as those early champions predicted, today our wellness, our relationships, our wealth, our work are all mediated more through our digital lives than our physical ones. However, concepts like property and ownership, these ideas that have been with us for centuries in the physical world, and quite clear, continue to evade us in digital spaces. And that's because digital spaces are different than physical ones. Ideas want to be free. They want to travel. So how do you monetize digital spaces? The model that we've come up with in the last 30 years that we continue to use today is advertising. Not because we love advertising, but because it's been what we're used to. We learned it from television. And if you remember, early television was just two people sitting and talking because we'd learned it from radio. So we're used to taking these like old models or the previous models and then kind of like bringing them into the present. So what ends up happening with advertising being our default monetization model for the internet is that a few large corporations end up owning most of the value online, not the creators who are creating the content. So yes, of course, many creators have made it work for themselves, but with better tools, could it be easier for them to build communities and monetize? I work with wellness creators who are health coaches, life coaches, and fitness trainers who create free and paid content online, and they build communities of people who are dedicated to supporting each other in living happier, healthier lives. And advertising has been what they're swimming in, the context that they're swimming in to build their businesses. I've seen some heads nod if you felt that pain, which I have as well. Until NFTs. So NFTs are a new technology that can make it easier for wellness creators or any creator to monetize their communities without needing to involve ads. The way that NFTs were described to me in a way that makes sense is it's a proof of ownership registered on the blockchain for everyone to see, sort of like a deed when you own a home, except it's built of the internet for the internet, which means it's built for digital creations and digital files, so they're able to roam free, and actually the more they are appreciated, the better for the owner or the creator. So again, to understand how this new technology can deepen our wellness in the future, let's again look to the past. Fitness and technology in the 80s. Back then, it was mostly established celebrities like Jane Fonda and Cher who had the resources to create high production workout videos. If any of you remember this one, Jane Fonda actually sold 17 million copies of this workout video, and she got more North Americans than ever before to buy their first VCR. So in many ways, she paved the way for this concept that's very normal to us today, which is practicing fitness or wellness at home. And many creators do that now, whether they're doing it on YouTube or they work for a company like Peloton or The Class. Jane Fonda paved the way, and I asked myself, with the huge mass adoption of VCRs that her fitness videos created, what could be mass adopted in terms of NFTs and Web3 by wellness creators today? And how could that deepen our wellness? So here's an example of what that could look like. Another reference, love him or not, Tony Robbins is probably one of the best known coaches. He's definitely the tallest and the loudest. And he has helped a lot of people feel more confident in business and worthy of love, even if his practices are a bit outdated. So in the 80s, his first seminar was about $500. And today it's around $15,000 to attend one of his seminars. So imagine if you would have bought the NFT ticket to his event in the 80s. It's like a VIP ticket, and for all the people that hold it, they could keep that original price as he continued to grow, which is his way of saying thank you for being one of my early adopters when I was starting out. If they're like a super Tony fan, they can continue to attend all of his events at a fraction of the cost, or maybe they want to sell it because an NFT is an asset. So he can sell it, and Tony Robbins and his team are happy because the NFT can be programmed in a way that the original creator gets a percentage of sales. And even every previous owner can get a percentage of sales. What if Tony Robbins had done a decentralized community? If that's a new phrase for you today, it's similar to an NFT in the sense that it's proof of ownership registered on the blockchain for everyone to see, except instead of a digital file, it's a community, similar to how an investor owns part of a company. So with a decentralized community, you can either buy in to own part of it, or you can even do different tasks. So let's say you're like an amazing connector. Maybe you want to help out with marketing the community, and you can increase how much you own by doing those tasks. Or maybe you're really good at customer service and love welcoming new community members and making them feel more comfortable. That could be a way that you give back to the decentralized community and own more of it. And you don't have to be like a mega celebrity to make it work. Many of you might remember the essay from 2008 by Kevin Kelly called 1,000 True Fans. He essentially said that if you can find 1,000 people on the planet who will pay you $100 in a year, then for selling services like art or meditations or really anything that you're passionate about, you could live a pretty comfortable life doing work that you love. Now, those were 2008 prices. Maybe today with the cost of gas, it needs to be more like $300 in a year or $500 in a year, but the idea is the same. And actually from year 2000 to 2020, there was a 700% increase in sole proprietors in North America, largely because this technology was available to them. People love to build their own communities. So what will happen in the next 20 years, now that more and more people have the ability to build things like NFT gated experiences or decentralized communities? We've seen some success already. Some of you might know Friends with Benefits. They're like decentralized Soho House, or Bored Ape Yacht Club, which is like decentralized Coachella. My company, Blawesome, is all focused on wellness. We're like decentralized Equinox. And here's the connection to overall wellness, even if your specific decentralized community has nothing to do with wellness. People are statistically happier when they're doing work where they feel fulfilled and like they're using their strengths, and they feel a sense of belonging and ownership in a community. And this idea of employee-owned or member-owned community can sound really like hippie and grassroots, but it can actually be huge business. Some of you might know Publix grocery store. It's called Publix, but it's actually private. It's a privately owned grocery store that did $44 billion in revenue last year. 20% was owned by the original family, and 80% is owned by the employees, not Wall Street. So that means all of the money that's going into this community is used for things that benefit it, like paid vacations or retirement. So the same way that employees of Publix grocery store own part of it and benefit from owning it, how could members of decentralized communities that are focused on increasing our health and wellness benefit from owning part of it? These are the questions that we get to imagine now. This is what we get to shape. So 30 years later, NFTs and decentralized communities have answered a lot of John Perry Barlow's original question. It's not perfect. We're definitely not at mass adoption just yet. But it's clear now that NFTs and decentralized communities will reshape the internet as we know it, with property rights and ownership baked into its code. This means an internet where more people can feel a sense of belonging and ownership, where economic control rests in the hands of the creators, and where our ideas can be directly supported by the people who appreciate them. So where do we go from here? Getting involved in something new can feel uncomfortable. I can tell you these last 2 years of leaving the comfort of my in real life wellness world, building Blawesome, getting involved in Web3 has felt excruciatingly vulnerable at times. But it's been worth it. So if any of this talk about wellness, Web3, NFTs, decentralized communities has spoken to you, practice believing right now that you know all you need to know to walk into any room or Discord channel. You're already worthy right now. The tools are here. They're ready to build a more human internet where more people can experience a sense of belonging and ownership as we work and play in values-aligned communities. Thank you. That's all I got.